Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist, Theresa Alexander Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome. Today, my guest is Katherine Sellery. She is a 3-time TEDx speaker, founder of the Conscious Parenting Revolution, a trusted voice for parents, educators, and leaders. And she is going to share with us just a lot of great strategies to help with power struggles and connection. And I'm really excited to have her. So welcome, Miss Katherine.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Oh, super excited. In this day where there's so many challenges and parents are navigating this journey without a guidebook, without instructions, and the world is telling our children one thing and parents are telling the children the other, and they're trying to fit in. And, people think, autistic children don't try to fit in, and it happens because there's so many different, there's such a spectrum, right? And a lot of children end up masking and, just engaging in a lot of behaviors where they internalize a lot of the stress. And help us, Katherine.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, everybody's struggling to meet their needs, and that's everybody. Every human being is struggling to meet their needs. And so I guess when you mention that, I think to myself, well, really, I mean, kids on the spectrum have the same needs I have. Right. I mean, everybody has the same human needs. It's part of being, it's part of the human experience. So I guess there's different weights that people put on, different needs of theirs. For example, I have a couple of kids. One of my children is what we would call the classic kind of belonger, really wants to please. Mm-hmm. And so that core need within him for a sense of feeling good about himself is tied to his communication and his relationships. Mm-hmm. And then I have another child who's highly autonomous. And so the value is more on self-determination. And there's more weight on that because, again, the core value around autonomy is what drives that person. So everybody has autonomy needs. Everybody has belonging needs. But there's different weight around which one satisfies my sense of self and drives me more. But we're all driven to meet our needs.
And thank you for mentioning that. It is so important because, again, a lot of people think, well, the autistic child does not. And I mean, there's so many nots. And you nailed it because, yes, we all have needs. And it's not that a child has, yes, we've got, some children prefer autonomy to, more, socialization and all of that. And I think, too, though, sometimes in the case of an autistic child, and I think with all of us, there are a lot of things that we may aspire to, but we don't know how to get there. And it's getting there and helping parents navigate how to help them get there to help meet those needs. I think that is such a big challenge.
Yeah, it makes me kind of chuckle because I trained in NVC, nonviolent communication, and Marshall Rosenberg is the founder of the movement. And he always said that often people go about meeting their needs in ways that are almost guaranteed not to. Mm. And we see that all the time, right? People are falling apart and they're trying to meet their needs and they're getting frustrated and they start to, have behaviors that are almost guaranteed not to get them closer to meeting their needs. So it's inevitable. And that's across the board, regardless of being on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. It's just part of mastery.
Absolutely. And, which is why we do what we do, because people don't know what they don't know. And you don't even realize what you don't know because you don't know what you don't know. So it's like it takes somebody on the outside to say, hey, well, first it takes you realizing that you're struggling and
Yeah.
being open to getting help and understanding that this journey is not meant for you to do alone. And
Yeah.
once you realize that, get the help, talk to someone, and receive the information. All of it may not be for you. However, there's always something for you, always something that you can take and modify to make it your own to help navigate, and help your children navigate through the challenges and the situations in life.
One of the best sort of things that informs parents is to look at the acting out behaviors as the tragic expression of the unmet need.
Mm,
So if you see the acting out behaviors as something that is obviously it's difficult to be around, sometimes it's socially unacceptable. I mean, there are all of those things that are happening at the same time. But if we can keep out of the land of good, bad, right, wrong, and judgment and all of that stuff, because when we go into that land, going in there activates our own irritation.
yes.
And if we realize that we can toggle that, we have that capacity to make those choices and to see it as something that, okay, sure, you'd rather not have to go through it. But boy, I think they're having more trouble than I am. I'm having to be around this person who's struggling. That's something I get to be compassionate about how hard that is for me. But let's put me aside for a minute. And oh my God, how hard is it for them? And, to just shift the focus away from this is inappropriate to, oh God, are you doing okay? You're not alone. I'm here with you. We can get through this. We can do hard things.
Wow. And that in itself is so powerful. And thank you for mentioning good, bad, right, and wrong. Because I tell parents I want to remove those words from any vocabulary that you use
Totally.
with your child because they are neither. They're none of those things, right? They
It's
just
just not,
are.
it's not the right, framework to think about it. It's just such a limited framework.
It is. It is. Because, I want to believe that we're all operating out of our best selves, and children have not learned to navigate the world yet. They don't have the information and the experience that we have. So it's up to us to help them. And if we start off by judging, like the other day I heard, parents say, oh, well, thank you for being a good boy. Because when you're a bad boy, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, and it wasn't somebody that I knew. So I wanted to say something because
Yeah.
just,
It's hard to be around, right?
it is, it is, it makes me
Yeah.
hurt because I'm thinking now this child feels judged, right? They're feeling that. So now they're like, oh, okay, was that good? Am I good?
I know.
Every child is quote unquote
It's
good. Every
so unhealthy for anyone. I mean, just the human condition doesn't thrive when they feel the judgmental external world looking at them from, I don't know, holier than thou or whatever you want to call it, but just as though something about, I guess the most difficult part is that the one doing the evaluating doesn't acknowledge that it's them evaluating.
right.
And so there's no sort of like dropping into, this isn't necessarily true. This is just the way I'm spinning it. And then I'm going to try to project that onto you so that you feel something, I guess, that I want to evoke out of you. When I think what we're trying to get is a change in behavior.
Yes. Yes.
Right. We're trying to get a change in behavior. And then there's like one school of thought, which is the behavioralist thought, which is, well, you reward the behaviors you want more of and you punish the behaviors you want less of.
Mm-hmm.
And, what we also know from the research is that when you use a controlling form of discipline like that behavioralist approach, you activate retaliation, rebellion, and resistance.
Yes.
And 75% of behavioral disruptions are the 3 R's. So you have 4 problems in your life. 3 of them you created because of how you dealt with the primary issue. So you activate the 3 R's, and then you spend all your time dealing with the reactions to how you dealt with the primary problem. So if we just stop using power and control, we eliminate 75% of our issues, and we're just staying focused on the primary problems. And we're working from a skills-based deficit, sort of like informed perspective of, well, if they had the skills to manage it, I'm sure they'd use them. Right. So what they really need are skills, not criticism or rewards or punishments or manipulation for not having had the skill in the first place. Because if you've got the skill, you use it.
Right.
It's really just a revelation that this is someone struggling to meet their needs and doesn't have the skills to even be able to articulate how frustrating it is that they can't.
Exactly. Yes. What is that behavior telling you, right? What are they communicating? Because every behavior is communication.
All coded. Yeah.
So how do we approach that then? So a child is engaging in, I don't know, a behavior, and how do we approach that from a conscious perspective, as opposed to, we're punishing or we're enforcing or, we're judging.
So we know the drawbacks of praise, right? If you want to lower someone's self-esteem, praise them. But we don't want to do that. So what do we do instead? Like, we see a behavior that we actually are like, oh my God, thank you so much. I really appreciated that you brought the groceries in or closed the car door, just whatever it is. So you can say thank you. You can highlight, you can verify, you can acknowledge without it turning into good boy, good girl. Yes. Right? So you can acknowledge the behavior and say things like, hey, I really appreciated that. I'm just a little tuckered today, and having an extra hand made a big difference. Thank you. Great. That's just something you would say to anybody that keeps you out of the land of praise. So you highlight, you verify, you acknowledge, you catch them doing it right. Yes. Right. And every time you catch them doing it right, you go into highlight, verify, acknowledge. Right. So you want to go ahead and amplify that, and usually make it so it's really clear about how that impacted you personally. Right. I was tired. I was tuckered out. That really supported me. I appreciate it. Thank you. So this is like teaching consideration. Why do we do the things we do for other people? Well, we do it out of consideration for their needs, not because I'm going to get a goodie or I'm going to get a praise or I'm going to get a treat or not to avoid the consequences of not having met your standards, because maybe I was tuckered out that day, right? And my failure to do the behavior isn't that I'm good, bad, right, wrong. It's simply that I was tuckered out that day. So keeping out of evaluation, diagnosis, all of those roadblocks to communication keeps it clean. Yes. And you can say things like, hey, I really would have appreciated a little support. And I imagine this must be a day where you're feeling a little tuckered out. Yeah. So a little grace there, a little grace around when the behaviors that we had wanted to have don't show up.
And it's also being very specific so people know exactly what is happening. I remember I was in a classroom one day and a teacher, this was grade 1, and the student handed in an assignment and the teacher said, "Good job." I said, "Good job for what?" She's like, "Well, he just handed an assignment." I said, "Yes. And right now he's sitting at his desk picking his nose." So we're not specific. So he has no idea what that means. So if we could just, like you said, remove that and be specific, maybe thank you for completing the assignment. Wow, the effort you put into that, being specific with what it was, as opposed to just these labels that don't really mean anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with you. So, we get into the land of non-blameful descriptions of behavior. Yes. So observation without evaluation, being the observer and just being able to say, when you left all your stuff on the floor in the living room, I was walking across the room. I almost tripped. I just caught myself. So now it's really clear, like, would you be willing to pick things up? And now that they understand, oh yeah, mom almost tripped and she, could have hurt herself. And it's no longer about because I said so. It's like tying it to like what's going on for me that I'm asking or making a request. And people are so much more accommodating when they hear request language than when they hear demands. And this is true for everyone. Nobody likes to feel like they're hearing demand language. Nobody likes to feel like there's no flexibility. It's so important to acknowledge that children are people too. Yes. And they have their own feelings and they have their needs that arise when their feelings are met. They have their needs or the feelings that arise when their needs are met, feelings that arise when their needs are not met. So when we just kind of stay rooted in that needs-based paradigm, It supports us in looking at the behavior and saying, this is the tragic expression of what unmet need. And what would support this person in being able to meet that need? And then, of course, just, emotional resilience, figuring out how to support someone so that they can calm themselves down. Yeah. And if you've got kids that are, have a pretty limited vocabulary, it would be important to give them more words.
Yes.
To explain their inner world to themselves and what they're going through. Because the more words I have, name it to tame it, the more words I have that hit the nail on the head of what's happening inside of me actually diffuses it.
Absolutely.
And if I don't have those words, it helps if somebody outside of me has the words and then I learn the word.
Yes.
So it would be even more helpful for somebody to say, are you frustrated?
Right.
Are you feeling anxious? Are you worried? I mean, because frustrated, anxious, and worried are actually 3 different feelings.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is going to hit the mark.
Yes.
If it doesn't hit the mark, they don't diffuse.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't hit the mark, they might escalate. And it just is information for you that, okay, well, that wasn't it.
Right.
And they may not be able to articulate it because they don't have that language yet. So we keep building the language. And the more that we can name it and tame it, the more they can do the self-talk.
Absolutely. And you have a great example of that. I was in a preschool, I consulted with a preschool, and I actually begged them to take this young autistic guy. And he was big for his age too. He was 3, but he was a big 3-year-old, and in a class of little 3-year-olds. And some of them were very little 3-year-olds. So imagine what that was like. And the teachers were a little uncomfortable because they'd never worked with an autistic young man before or any autistic children. And one day he walked in and was just, could not communicate what was going on, was just he appeared frustrated, and that I'm not going to say he was because I don't know. And he took his shoe and threw it. And oh gosh, I thought if that had hit somebody, because it literally went across the room.
Aww.
Then one of the other students said, "Nanite," and he said, "Nanite," and I said, "Oh, I'm tired," and he said, "I'm tired," and that was the end of the tantrum. Just labeling that for him. So
Wow.
yeah, that was it. And he stayed awake and everything was fine. No other issues until lunchtime. So he ate his sandwich and his banana, and then he started again. And the teacher was like, "Oh my gosh, like twice in one day, what's going on? This has never happened with him before." And I said, "I'm hungry." And he said, "I'm hungry." Then I said, I said, "Miss Stacy, may I please have something more to eat?" And he repeated, "Miss Stacy," and I didn't tell him to say,
Beautiful.
I just said,
He just
"I'm
learned.
hungry."
You were the model. You were
Yeah.
teaching him.
And he asked for more, he got the more, and that was the end of those tantrums.
Yeah.
And it happened.
So, it's such a beautiful, beautiful story of the tragic expression of the unmet need.
Yes.
And the skills deficit to be able to explain what the need was. So simple here. Maslow's hierarchy, food, air, water, and sleep, right? Basic needs. And when he couldn't meet the needs, he didn't have the language. And so he spoke through the behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes. So it's exactly.
And you were there to read, and that made all the difference.
Absolutely. And I'm thankful that I was, because, I actually was called to a school, same situation. And this child was not on the spectrum, honestly, identical situation. And once we gave him the words, it was okay. They were actually looking to dismiss him from the school because of that. And I thought, how fair is it to punish a child for skill deficit, right? Our goal, like I said earlier, is to give them the skills, because everything is coming out of that skill deficit. And it's like we expect children to navigate in ways that we don't even, because how many times as adults have we just, because something happened, and then a child does it age appropriately, because I tell parents sometimes, "You're having a tantrum right now. Let's, take a time out." I don't ask children. suggest that parents not put their children in timeout. I suggest they take time out so they can
Yeah,
reflect
I do too the same.
and put it
Yeah.
together.
Know when you need to take a break. Know when you need to take that oxygen mask and put it on yourself. Apply some self-compassion. Soothe whatever's going on for you, because obviously it stirs up your own inner sense of things that you're struggling with. And, that's okay. You're going to have your own, things that arise for you. So having, it's okay not to be perfect. I don't have to always get this right either. I'm going to make mistakes too. That gives yourself the grace, and it also models for other people to not always be perfect either. Yes. And that it's okay. It's the human condition. We can't always do perfect. And to even expect to do so is setting our, a whole world of upset, going down the road. But what's informing a lot of people is what I call the negative view of children. And so if we are conscious of that, then we can work with that bias. I look at it as the last marginalized community that no one's ever talking about. And that is that there is actually an embedded bias that children are, it's almost as though they knew what they should have done and they could have done it and they didn't do it on purpose. And now I'm going to have to make them pay for that because look how you've made me feel. Right. And in this whole dysfunctional, description, we have an unacknowledged perception that set up our own exasperation because we have this idea that if they get it wrong, they have to pay for that. Yes. Because it's as though they did it on purpose, And then the second part of that is that whole sort of, look at the gray hairs you've given me. And, if you don't stop this, I'm going to get a migraine. It's this blaming the externals for how I feel as if it caused it, which of course isn't even true. Right. But it also models for children a lack of responsibility or accountability. And it models blame consciousness, blaming the externals for how I respond as if it caused it without that sense of, acknowledgement of, that was a real catalyst. I can see a lot's going on inside of me right now with regard to how that catalyzed me. And what's being catalyzed is all about me.
Absolutely.
And I do need to go take care of me right now, by the way. So I'm going to go, into my room and do my little time out and work with my inner world. And when I'm better, I'm going to come out and we can talk about what's happening for you. I'm sorry. I can see you're really upset.
Yes. And exactly. And it starts with you, right? It always starts with us and what we're modeling, what we're teaching with our behavior. It somehow brought to mind, I heard a mom say to a 2-year-old, you should know better.
What? Yeah. Like, how can that happen?
I know.
But it's a classic one.
Yeah. He is 2 years old. And it's like, I said, okay. And my thing was, and I said, you should know better. And how many things do you do in opposing that, right? As opposed to, going with what you know to do. How many times have you?
We all do it.
Exactly.
That's why should lists are just so, there's something to be aware of, but they're toxic. Yes. They're dysfunctional. And they usually show me that the person who's saying that is struggling.
Yes.
Right. And so we can have some compassion because look, it's a full-time process working with anyone who's struggling to meet their needs and teaching children how to meet their needs on the spectrum, off the spectrum. It's just it's a full-time job.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Katherine, our time is winding down so fast.
I can't believe it.
I know, it's crazy.
I can't believe it. We just got started.
We did. And so many questions came up because you mentioned the 3 R's. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are those 3 R's? Let people know.
Retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. And so whenever I have a parent call me for a consultation, I'm always leaning in. listening for the behaviors that they're complaining about and trying to ascertain, do I think that's rebellion? Is that retaliation? Is that resistance? And then I'll say, it sounds like maybe these are one of the 3 R's. They're like, oh my God, they're all 3. And I'm like, okay, well, that's actually the easiest thing that can happen today, because we can eliminate all of that just by giving you a few more tools in your tool shed to be able to manage those primary problems. Slamming the door, I hate you mommies, kicking the dog, the problems that are the real problems, and working when those arise to be able to address them in ways that don't activate the 3 R's are really going to drive a huge shift in behavior.
It sounds like we
If
need
we
a
stay
whole,
focused, right? On
yeah,
the
we
real
need a
thing.
whole other 26 minutes to talk about
We
that.
do.
Yeah.
We do.
So I just
We'll
want
do another 26. We'll do another 26.
We need to, yeah. So
For
I just
sure.
want to say thank you for today. And audience, thank you for watching and listening. And I really appreciate you, Miss Katherine. And audience, stay tuned. Next week, we'll have another awesome guest who will share all kinds of awesome strategies. Thank you so much.